Folks, what is happening? Welcome to the February 19th edition of the Go With The Flow NHL podcast presented by Let Me Be Frank Sports. And you can now follow myself, Danny Merritz, and Kevin Bartman on Spotify. So you can check the three of us out there. And we'd like to thank B. Frank, obviously our boss from the site, for doing a great job getting us on Spotify, get us some more exposure. So follow us on iTunes, obviously, the Let Me Be Frank site, and now Spotify. So thanks for tuning in this week. So we'll welcome myself, Nick Phillips, and my guest Kevin, and co-host, not guest, my co-host Kevin, and Dan to the show. Boys, what's happening?
It's okay. We get it. It's fine. Not much, fellas. How are you?
We've only been doing this for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, nice little fuck up to start the night, but we saw plenty of fuck ups in the United Center. We're recording here on Monday night, President's Day here in the good old USA. But yeah, plenty of fuck ups. I believe a 9-goal first period, and what arguably the most crazy, just batshit wild NHL game of the year. Obviously, Chicago-Toronto in the Blackhawks season opener, where you had Kane and Matthews having a little fun with their cellies. We thought that game couldn't be eclipsed in craziness, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think 9 goals in the first period of Monday night's game. Hawks were up 5-4. Hawks were down 2-0. Made it 2-2. Ottawa goes up 3-2. Hawks go up 5-3. Ottawa makes it 5-5. Hawks rip off 3 straight, 8-5. Then it gets a little dicey at the end. It's 8-7, and the Hawks take a penalty, and there's a 6-on-4, and they somehow hang on in regulation, which I love personally from a little gambling aspect. Had the Hawks full-time 60 minutes tonight, not a big deal. So DeBrincat with 5 points and a hat trick. Patrick Kane extending his point streak with 3 points on the night. He's now up to 87, still fucking behind Kucherov, who had 5 points tonight, 2 goals and 3 assists on all of Tampa's goals, factoring in every goal. So initial reaction to an 8-7 game and 9 goals in the first, boys. What a crazy game.
Yeah, just an absolute barn burner. And the second period, 9 goals in the first period, and it didn't stop in the second period. I think Ottawa scored like 3 minutes into it. So, the two teams pretty much picked up right where they left off. As far as entertainment goes, I mean, the Hawks have been struggling for a lot of the season. Crawford goes out, all that sort of stuff. So, even though it was kind of a nail-biter at the end, it's fun to see them be able to go, kind of blow for blow on the goal thing. It's nice to know that, when push comes to shove, they can put the puck in the back of the net. I mean, they get it. It's Ottawa. Big fucking deal. But, it's just nice to see. It's a fun I don't know. Those games are always fun for me to watch personally. Just seeing, two teams just go absolutely at it, and apparently no defense whatsoever, but that's okay.
I think one of my takeaways from this game is, I don't know if this is an unusual way to look at it, but you saw a lot of strengths that the Blackhawks have, but I think a lot of the players who have flaws, you saw their flaws big time tonight. Like, I know Nick absolutely hates Brandon Perlini. He was dog shit as usual. Our goaltending, giving up 7 goals is obviously very flawed. Colin Delia, pretty tough scene to start off the game. But then, it's better to focus on the bright spots. Obviously, Alex DeBrincat is, blossoming into a 40-goal score. I called that not a big deal.
He did 40 tucks, man. Kevin
40
called
tucks.
Start.
Dylan Strome, that trade is looking so damn good right about now. It's kind of hard to judge it because Nick Schmaltz tore his ACL or whatever, but Dylan Strome has been an absolute monster this year ever since he came to Chicago. You can't say enough about Patrick Kane. He's on an unreal pace, career high, playing the best hockey of his life. And I just want to point out a little stat that I saw earlier this morning. There are 5 hockey players all time who recorded a 16-game assist streak. Those 5 players are Wayne Gretzky, Adam Oates, Paul Coffey, Jaromir Jagr, and now Patrick Kane.
Holy fuck.
Pretty unbelievable. And
That's
Kane's the first American born. So
that's some pretty ridiculous company. Hall of Famers galore. Holy shit! And Oates works. Now he works with guys kind of individually, all over the league as like a, he like breaks down their game and just kind of helps them.
He hasn't helped the fucking Kings since he became a consultant. I'll tell you.
Yeah, but on the individual level, he's grown some sort of a business because they all
Absolutely.
fucking go to him, and it's absolutely absurd. He's like one of the best passers you can think of. Oates, like that's probably the first thing that comes to mind for me is his passing ability, and obviously, Gretzky's Gretzky, and well, I mean, all those guys, like shit, that's some ridiculous company, not just to be with Hall of Famers, but to be with, the Hall of Famers that everybody thinks of when you just list really great hockey Hall of Famers. And then there's, Patrick Kane, not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, Paul Coffey on there. I mean, like, listen, don't get me wrong. The guy had serious longevity, just an unbelievable skater, elite, power play QB. But, that's a guy who played in Edmonton for at least a decade. And I mean, you're just dishing it on the outlet up the ice to Gretzky, Messier, Yari Curry. Like, I mean, yeah, I'd fucking hope the guy could rack up some assists. But I'm not trying to disrespect Paul Coffey, but, it's just funny when a D-man's on the list because, man, like, look at like Morgan Riley this year, the amount of points he's going to freaking have because he's just dishing it to, all those guys Toronto has, Matthews, Marlowe, Marner, maybe not so much Nylander, but Tavares. I mean, Jesus. So, pretty impressive. And Kevin, I know you I think you threw a stat, in our group text, but what's, Strome's a guy who a lot of people were starting to throw that, bust, term out, to describe, but what's his, what are his stats looking like right now through 35, 36 games in Chicago?
So through 36 games in Chicago, he has 35 points, 14 goals, and 21 assists. Yeah,
pretty remarkable. And to Brinkett, who obviously had a nice night, is having a fantastic season. And Strome, their entry-level contracts are up next year after the 2020 season. So might be a bit of an interesting offseason, as we've talked about many times on here with, the Blackhawks projected to have some cap space. And, do they get DeBrincat locked up early? And, now, is Strome a guy that they have urgency to get signed? And, it's going to be interesting. So the Blackhawks now have jumped into within a point, I believe, of Minnesota for the last wild card spot. And, I think we want to send it up to, Minnesota for Dan Meritz, who, Danny boy, give us your firsthand take. I mean, you get all the Wild games on TV. You've got friends, from your time living up there that are into this team. I think they're incredibly boring. And I watched the Hockey Day in America game between the Blues and the Wild. And obviously the Blues are just a wagon right now, just rolling over teams, scoring at will, getting some absurdly, unexpectedly good goaltending from Binnington. But what do you see with the Wild right now? Why was I listening to a guy like Ed Olczyk call this team fragile 5 times in the first period? Like, what's going on up there?
Fucking panic, fellas. I have a buddy that I work with. He's already tuned into baseball season. Like, that's how bad it is.
To the Twins?
No, well, yeah, I was going to say that's to be honest, I didn't ask him. Knowing him, I doubt it. I think he just means baseball in general.
Okay.
Because that's how fucking done with the Wild he is. And look, like, I get it. It's the state of hockey. Everybody loves hockey up here. But holy shit, I don't know if it's the Wild or just Minnesota sports in general, where they just have all this promise. Not saying that, like, going into this year, Minnesota was expected to do all these great things, but every year they show a little inkling that they can do stuff, and then it just, oh my God, it's abandoned ship every year.
Can I pop in real quick? I gotta say that Niederreiter trade was bizarre.
Yeah,
really bizarre.
Yeah,
what do the folks up there think about that?
I know a bunch of people are like, really, like, why are we doing this? Like, honestly, every time that there's a trade made, or literally just any time there's a game, I had a buddy that went to the game against the Blues. I get it, the Blues are hot, but they just get fucking shelled 4-0. Even if they do stick around in the playoffs, they're out first round. Easy choice on that one. As far as the Wild go, man, it's abandoned ship. But I think it's the same problem every fucking year. I think I've said it last year. I'm pretty sure I said it 2 years ago, and I'm pretty sure I've said it the year before that, before we did the podcast. They just don't have the guy that like Kane. They don't have a guy like that, and they never really have. And when you do have a guy like that, he can win you games here and there, right? Like we saw with Crawford just a season or two ago. With the stats he was able to win games that the Hawks had no business winning because they were outplayed. They need a guy that can kind of take the game and put it on his back and just bury a couple goals for him. That might be the difference between them winning a series actually or not. Unfortunately, I haven't seen the Wild play this year. I got to go and do that, regardless if they win or lose. It's always it's a really fun building. It's a really fun atmosphere. If you haven't gone there, I'd recommend it. The fans really get into it. Obviously, the whole state is a huge hockey hotbed. The fans get into it. I haven't heard any reports of jerseys being thrown on the ice or trash bags over their head in Anaheim. So I don't think we've gotten to that part yet. But I think for your average Minnesota fan, I think people are pretty much just fucking done. Bruce Boudreau needs to go. He fucking sucks. It's just, I don't know, man. I honestly, I feel bad for them because I don't hate the Wild like I do, say, the Blues or the Preds or something like that. So, I kind of feel bad for them, especially seeing them play live three or four times last year. They can be really fun to watch. So, it's not good for the state of hockey, man. Not good.
I feel like the Minnesota Wild, in like pretty much ever since the Hawks started their run of relevancy, and I guess since that coincides with the Wild being like a significant team, they don't really have an identity. Like from year to year, you can't really expect like the same thing out of the Minnesota Wild. You know what I mean? Like when they had Mike Yeo, they were sort of a more like defensively, I guess, focused team, and that obviously didn't work in the playoffs. And then now they shift over to Bruce Boudreau, who just like I don't even know what the fuck he does, but it doesn't work. So like there's just they never had an identity that like they've stuck to for a long time. And I guess that's
I
guess
agree.
that's sort of why like it's not working out for them.
I'd say they've come a decent, like a long, maybe not like a long way, like the Hawks per se, when they were just awful and then they got really good. But like watching, like the Wild between the years of like 2013 when they played the Hawks and 2014 when they played the Hawks. 2014, I thought the Wild probably should have won that series if it isn't for two people, Patrick Kane and Corey Crawford. Crawford stood on his head almost every game that year, and Kane.
Yeah, they beat him in Game 6 OT. Man, that shit almost went 7.
Yeah, and it's literally, if you go back and watch that series, there's at least 2 games where it's like, how the hell? And I think Game 6 is one of them where it's like the Wild really should have, because that game was in Minnesota. And I remember them getting like 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, breakaways left and right. Crawford just stood on his head, and then Kane gets that one chance and he buries it. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. They need that pure goal scorer to do something like that. All he needed was one chance, and he put that game away. But the difference between those two teams, because 13 they were in a rebuild, right? And the Hawks were on a roll, obviously, President's Trophy winners, all that stuff. And the Hawks basically just rolled over them 4 games to 1, right? Like you had Backstrom in net, pulls his groin before warm-ups even, stepping out on the ice. And then you have Harding in net, who, was decent, but, the Hawks just picked him apart. Kemper came in for a little bit that game, or in that series, I should say. But then they sort of found a little bit more of an identity in 14, and they were aggressive, pucks on net, kind of that Zach Parise sort of style. And then 2015 comes around, and Kev, to your point, it's like, I don't know. I don't know if the Hawks were just that good in 15, but I, as a Hawks fan, I was really nervous for that playoff series just because of what happened the year before. And I'm like, if the Hawks win this is going to go to 7. And then they fucking swept them. And then the playoff series after that, the last couple of years have just been, disastrous. Dallas, St. Louis. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, part of the problem was even going back that. I mean, the Brent Burns trade for them, even going back to whatever year that was when he got shipped to San Jose, like that trade is just not worked out very well for Minnesota. I mean, this is even before they had Parise and Suter join the fold. I mean, they got Charlie Coyle and Setaguchi back. I mean, yeah, like Coyle's a solid NHL player, but he's not a game-breaking forward. And I mean, you've seen Brent Burns, just become an all-world defenseman. I mean, he's got a Norris. I mean, Brent Burns is a really good player, and I mean, you had him back there with Suter, a couple of those years. I mean, you're talking maybe their fortunes are a little different, but I mean, part of the problem is when you don't have a ton of game-breaking offense. Like Parise is a good forward, but he's not like I wouldn't call him a first liner anymore. I mean, the year when they signed him after Jersey went to the Cup, I mean, he was playing at a super sick level. But I mean, he's not. I don't think he's a first line guy anymore. I mean, you trade Niederreiter. Granlund is, I don't know. He's kind of a frustrating player to me. But all that said, when you're not generating a ton of goals and then you just have Dubnyk just totally have just an egregiously bad run. I mean, I know the other night the other day they're playing the Blues at the game we talked about, Hockey Day in America, and they throw Stalock in the net because they don't even trust Dubnyk. So you throw a backup who's played like 11, 12 games this year, you put him against literally the hottest team in the league right now on the past 11, 12 games. I mean, yeah, you're gonna lose 4-0 because the Blues are a good defensive team. You've got Pietrangelo, Parayko, some other solid guys back there. Binnington's giving them good goaltending. Tarasenko, O'Reilly, those guys are playing at a super high level offensively, and the Blues pretty much just shut them down. And, obviously, it seems like they take a shit ton of I think their penalty kill is awful too. Like they can't kill penalties, and obviously your best penalty killer's got to be your goaltender. But I know when they sent in Boucher to go talk to Boudreau's just like, he almost dropped like an F-bomb in the middle. He's like, you can't take penalties. We work on it every day. So anyone who's seen Boudreau in the HBO stuff knows that the guy's
it was like a definitive Boudreau.
Fucking want it.
Yeah,
it's like a definitive Boudreau. I mean,
come on, guys, roll it down one fucking shot. You got to go out there and not just say you want it. You got to go out there and fucking want it. I love Boudreau.
Honestly, I really wish he would have said it. I mean,
he almost did. They're like, "What do you got to do to kill penalties?" And he's like, "We work on
taking
every
fucking penalties."
Yeah, he's like, "Well, we work on it every practice." It's like, oh man.
But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma. Everybody seems a little depressed. I was listening to the radio today at work, and K-Fan for you Minnesota people listening. And they were kind of talking about the Wild and comparing them to the Timberwolves because T-Wolves fans have been sick and tired of years for their bullshit. But, Wild fans, I don't know, they keep coming back for more and more. So there's kind of an interesting little dilemma. But anyway, on to greener pastures, I suppose.
Yeah, greener or meaner pastures if we want to talk about Don Cherry just being the old man who yells at the cloud. Kevin, I know Kevin's got some fun thoughts here.
On Don Cherry? So I'm kind of torn on this because, I mean, it's kind of hard to hate Don Cherry. He's just an electric guy, electric personality. But, he's kind of right in that, like, all this shit that the Hurricanes do. Like, I get that they're just trying to, it's for the fans mostly. And, it's starting to bring a little more energy back in their games because, not a lot of people go. But, like, it gets to a point, and we were talking off air, and Dan, he said this, I'm kind of stealing his point, but it gets to a point where, like, you got to just draw a line somewhere. And, like, the rowing, like, the canoe paddling thing, or, like, skating up against the boards and jumping, it's like, okay, that's cool. But, like, playing baseball in the middle of the fucking ice, it's like, it feels like something at a minor league baseball game. It's just gimmicky and like they're just trying to
wait. You see them all, the entire team. I'm not joking. The entire team did the limbo.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, they also did
They
bowling.
did bowling pins. Yeah, Justin Williams.
But yeah, I watched, and fucking if you watch Van Riemsdyk though, he kind of falls over, like he doesn't really want to be doing it, but he kind of has to because he's on the team. Because if you kind of look at it, he falls and he's like the first, like he doesn't actually, like everybody falls onto their back, you know, and their legs come up, like a la Shaquille O'Neal falling back in the day. You know, everybody's rolling around, and Van Riemsdyk was like the first one on his feet. So yeah, Kev, just to kind of reinforce your point, I don't know.
Yeah, and all the skull clap thing, like that's pretty cool.
That doesn't bug me. I'm sure.
I actually like that. Yeah.
Yeah, not to bring up Minnesota fans again, but
That
I'm
actually
sure they got
that actually
frustrated.
started with the Icelandic soccer teams.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
like, that's awesome.
That's fine. But when it gets to the bowling part, and look, I love growing the game. I love seeing, you know, little kids, you know, seeing their favorite hockey players getting pucks. I forgot who it was. It was a little girl asking, oh, crap, I forgot who it was.
Marner.
I just heard it. Was it Marner? Yeah. And
Where's
she
the
said,
Valentine?
yeah, she said, will you be my Valentine? Love that shit. I eat that stuff up. I love that. I love growing the game. I love seeing, you know, little kids skating on the ice and saying, this person's my favorite player, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely am not like Don Cherry where I'm like, rah, 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 rah. But at a certain point, I feel like there needs to be some professionalism. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just an asshole.
Okay.
I don't know.
So I'm not even going to play like devil's advocate. I'm kind of in the middle, on it because Carolina's been a team who I'm not saying they've ever been close to getting relocated. They just got a new owner. He seems super like invested in the team. I think his name's Dundon or something like that. Seems like he's a super hands-on, like invested owner. And you know what? Carolina's been a organization that has struggled to win and thus has struggled with attendance. I mean, you know, they went to the Cup in 2002 and then they won it in 2000. I mean, they lost to maybe one of the greatest teams ever, the 2002 Red Wings. No shame in losing to them, but you know, win the Cup in 2006 against Edmonton. But you know, really the last, you know, let's call it decade. I mean, the fans haven't had a lot to be excited about, and it's just not a traditional hockey market. So anything, I think the NHL is loving this personally because fans find this team fun and they find them entertaining. They've got a fun team. They've got some good D-men. You know, the goaltending's still suspect, so all their games are just high octane, super exciting. You know, guys like Aho and Teravainen are playing well for them. So it's a fun team, but yeah, it's kind of weird. But first of all, Don Cherry saying something's over the top should look at his own wardrobe. Maybe I love grapes too, man. I fucking love the guy. But, you know, it's just funny for Don Cherry to say something's over the top when he shows up to, you know, his show and just the most absurd get-ups, just some ridiculous fits. And then, but yeah, I mean, part of it is like, yeah, kind of like old man, like looks at, yells at cloud, you know, like the old Abe Simpson thing. But I mean, like, I still find it really weird that Justin Williams, like, is actively participating in this. This is a guy who's been in the league how many years? He's got, I think, 3 cups. Just, you know, like, it's just weird to see a team coached by like Rod Brindamore and, you know, with Justin Williams as one of the grizzled vets on the team, just like going out there and doing all these theatrics after the game. And I think part of the problem is like some people might think it's like disrespectful to the other team, but it's like, I'll say this too about like NFL celebrations. So you're like, you know what? You don't want a guy like grabbing his crotch or like twerking on a ball or, you know, or Antonio Brown just doing a flying spread eagle into the goalpost or whatever the hell that was a couple years ago. Like, you know, if you don't want another team to celebrate on you, go beat them. So if other teams, if other teams think the Canes, you know, the Canes are on the cusp of maybe making the playoffs. I think them and Pittsburgh are right now kind of neck and neck for that last wild card spot. So, I mean, the team's fun. It's getting the fans involved, but at the same time, I think it really is. It's just bizarre in general. But for a team coached by Rod Brindamore to be doing this shit, like, kind of weird. But whatever.
Yeah, that last point, I guess, just to bring up. Well, not the last point, but that I definitely agree. Is if you don't like it, then just go out and beat them because then they can't fucking do it. So, anyway.
And you got to respect the Hurricanes, like social media, just sort of embracing it and trolling the fuck out of Don Cherry.
Yeah, monetize it. Bunch of jerks, right? Isn't that what he called them?
Yep. So they were selling T-shirts with a bunch of jerks and like like they changed their Twitter bio to like Twitter page for like a hockey team of a bunch of jerks or something like that. So they're sort of embracing it and I guess having fun with it, troll game. So good fun.
Yeah, boys, I think we wanted to touch too on Sasha Barkov, the captain for the Florida Panthers, with an absolute beauty of a goal. I'd have to say goal of the year. Boys, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that real quick. I mean, obviously, I think we all appreciated it and the level of difficulty to pull off between the legs goal at full speed in a real game, on a breakaway. Like to do that at top speed is pretty fucking absurd, don't you think?
Yeah, it's on par with me. I'd say a little bit below the Nikita Kucherov like non-deke, if you know what I'm talking about. It's just something so ridiculous to pull off in the middle of a game and just requires so much, talent and skill. But yeah, just an unbelievable goal. I would say, just generally speaking, Alexander Barkov is still, even though it's really hard to say because like everyone knows how good he is, but he's still somehow like one of the most underrated, under the radar players in all of hockey, and he's like an absolute stud. He's how old is he? Like 20? Fuck, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, but like he's going to be good for a really long time, and he's just sort of stuck in like a really uh small market. So, um, yeah, I guess no one really sees how good he is from a day to day basis. But now you see, highlights like this, and you see, wow, this guy's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, just I mean, you pretty much nailed it there, Kev. I think what it just really showcases is just how much skill there is in today's NHL. Like you just said, maybe not a household name in the NHL, with your McDavids and Kucherovs and Crosbys and Canes and whoever else you have in that list. But it just goes to show you that these guys, I mean, he's not, like you just said, he kind of flies under the radar, but just about every guy is in the NHL for a reason. It's because they can all fucking game, and you just see ridiculous moments like that, where you just look at it and you're like, wow, that was pretty special. So
Definitely, boys. Trying to think what else we wanted to discuss. Possibly going back to Ottawa. Did we want to touch on Duchesne, Stone? Obviously, Ottawa is kind of in an interesting spot with those two forwards. I mean, two guys that deserve some, not top end forward money, but like, somewhere between the $7 and $9 million range, probably potentially, depending on how many teams are in the open market. And it sounds like Ottawa's in a weird spot where they're last in the East, and Stone and Duchesne kind of enjoy playing in Ottawa, and they've maybe each gotten contract offers, but at the same time, Duchesne and Stone might want to go win, and Ottawa can get something for them at the deadline. So, any opinions on what Ottawa should be doing with Mark Stone and Matt Duchesne, or or any teams you think would be a good fit for them? Obviously, I think Winnipeg's been rumored to be sniffing around Stone, and I think the Islanders and the Preds have been linked to Duchesne. The Islanders, right? Those might remember last year I was kind of talking about how I thought the Islanders were maybe going to be the team that get Duchesne from Colorado using a Hamonic or something, but Hamonic went to Calgary, and obviously Duchesne went to Ottawa. Two separate trades, but any thoughts on what Ottawa should do? Where you think they end up? What would you do if you were them too? If I were them, I'd go get the same amount of money, go fucking win. Ottawa it's in Canada, it's a Canadian market, and they stink. I'd go somewhere where there's no state income tax and go play for a contender, but that's just me.
I mean, from a player's point of view, yeah, it's easy. Like, I'd obviously not want to be in that organization right now, especially considering what this last offseason was like for him with the Erik Karlsson debacle. So it's not a really healthy organization to be in. On the ice and off the ice, they're just not a good team. But like, if you're the Senators, like it's really hard to sell your fan base that you want to be a winner in very soon, like they actually have suggested, and then you can't trade away, two of your best players. It's really hard to sort of sell your fan base on that, even though it could be a smart thing to do depending on the market at the trade deadline. What the going rate would be for a Duchesne or a Mark Stone, but it's kind of it's tough for me to decide right now because I think I have to think about it more. But yeah, it's you have to wait closer to the deadline to see how the market shapes out.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I don't really have too much kind of input on it. I guess Ottawa was going to be a part of my what the puck moment a little bit anyway, and I want to
give it to us early. Go ahead.
Doubly. Oh, my what the puck moment was just going to be the fact that the teams in the West. I mean, Ottawa is sort of the scapegoat in the East because they're last. But the what the puck moment for me is I can't think of in any recent season where pretty much every single team in the West can somewhat reasonably make the playoffs at the end of the year. I get for some teams it's harder and they got to turn things around. Anaheim comes to note, obviously Edmonton, LA, but they're only 8. LA's dead last. I'm looking at it. They're only 8 points out of a playoff spot. So if they somehow get their shit in gear, they can pull on a little run here and maybe sustain it. I mean, there's still, some teams are at 60, 59 games. I mean, there's still 20 plus games left in the season. And that's, they're going to need some help from other teams, but it's just interesting to me that a lot of teams in the West are still fighting for a playoff spot, even though their season maybe hasn't gone according to plan, or like Anaheim, you just completely shit the bed. Anaheim's only 5 points behind the Wild. But then you go down to the East and everything's a little bit more, or actually a lot bit more normal, where you've got basically 3 teams that aren't in the playoffs right there on the doorstep: Carolina, Buffalo, and Philly. And then you've got your teams that are basically out of it, Ottawa's 20 points out of it. So that was kind of my what the puck moment. Sorry to rip on Ottawa being 20 points down. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right on that with the West, but I think you're going to start to see things change a little bit.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. But
when the deadline hits,
mm-hmm.
when out like LA, Edmonton, Arizona, even teams like Minnesota and even the Hawks and Colorado, and did I forget anybody? Vancouver. I don't see any of those teams being like buyers. So, I mean, I think a lot of these teams are going to sell. So, if once some of these teams sell off any of their more productive assets, you're going to really see some separation there. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to. It is crazy, but I mean, LA's down 3-0 right now to the Caps. Thank you very much, Caps in regulation. But yeah, there's some teams that are 6 to 8 points out that are going to.
No, 100%. It's just interesting to sort of speculate.
Oh yeah.
And at this point, there would, like I said, there are teams in the East that are just you're going. Well, there's no way. And Ottawa obviously is the first one that comes to mind. There's a bunch of others too. Detroit probably, I think. Yikes. Let me check this. Yeah, Detroit. Okay, thank God. New Jersey.
Yeah, Detroit. They're Nyquist and Howard probably.
Yeah. I mean, they're sort of out of it, but it's just the West is like a complete fucking gong show right now. So that's my what the puck. Anyway, sorry,
yeah,
Ottawa.
That's why I guess it would make sense for them maybe to Ottawa to maybe push for a move sooner rather than later. Before the teams sort of start to separate themselves, because, like you said, Nick, there are teams that are in the hunt, but they know for a fact that they realistically aren't going to be able to win a Stanley Cup with the roster they have. So it honestly might be smarter for them to make a move sooner rather than later to trade them to maybe a team who's still kind of on the fence, or doesn't really matter who it is. Just if they can get a good deal, might not be the worst idea. Because they're obviously walking in free agency, but
yeah, that's the nice scenario, right? If you don't trade them and you still stink, and then you get nothing for them. So, I mean, they just got to know if the contract demands are reasonable, and if these guys are really on board and staying there for the next 7-8 years, and that's going to be it's going to be interesting. I think both are getting traded. I don't see how. I don't know. I feel like there's a few teams across the league that are going to pay these guys what they want, and they can go win now, and they can just leave an organization that's had plenty of tomfoolery going on the past couple of years. There's a fun word for everybody. I think it'd be smart for Ottawa to get rid of them because, you can get more – you can just kind of start a new core. I mean, you've got some young pieces on that team, guys like Tkachuk and Shabbat and everything. So why not just build around those guys and get some nice young pieces and picks at the deadline and just kind of move on? But I think Ottawa's going to have an interesting offseason because if they don't sign Stone or Duchesne, they might actually be a team that accrues some draft picks and such, and some good prospects because, obviously in the NHL you got to reach the salary cap floor. So if you don't sign Duchesne, you don't sign Stone, they don't really have any expensive guys on their team. So they might be a team where, your team looking to trade a bad contract, give the Sens a call.
Yeah, so anything else you want to cover? I can't really think of anything. Oh, Nick, you want to do a what the puck? You got anything?
Yeah, I'll actually do a what the puck, and it's actually a positive one.
Let's hear it.
Actually, what the puck was the puck literally almost murdered Pierre Maguire Monday night. He was working between the benches in the Tampa Columbus game, and there's a GIF out there where the puck, I'm not joking, comes within 3 inches of just taking off that shit-eating grin on his face. But it was pretty. It was. I joke about it, but that could have been very bad. A guy, I'm assuming it was a D or something, ripped it out of the zone, and it went straight past one of the benches and almost domed Pierre. So that would have been bad. But another what the puck is, maybe I'm just an idiot. I know the guy's had an outstanding career, and he's been doing it for 12, 13 years or whatever it is. But I did not know Ryan Miller had as many wins as he did. He just became the all-time American goaltender in NHL wins. So congratulations to Ryan Miller. I'm still a little salty about Crosby beating him 5-0 in Vancouver in 2014, but the guy's had a hell of a career. Obviously with Buffalo for a long time, and then the Blues picking him up and trying to make a cup run with him as the number one guy. And now he's been in Anaheim as Gibson's backup. But congrats to him on an outstanding career. But obviously when you think of great American goaltenders, you're thinking of guys like like Richter and New York and stuff like that. But just kind of crazy that he's the guy. But so that and Pierre or mine. Kevin, anything?
So mine is John Chayka, the general manager. Is it Chayka or Chaika?
Doesn't matter.
Either way. So he's the general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, as you guys know. He made a remark around the time of the Strome trade, the Strome-Schmaltz trade, in regards to Dylan Strome. It was something to the effect of sometimes you got to be patient with your prospects, and sometimes you just got to know when to, let things go. Well, Dylan Strome has 41 points right now, and I get it. It's a little bit different circumstances, not. It could be a different situation had it not changed. But Dylan Strome would currently be the leading scorer on the Arizona Coyotes with 41 points. So,
wow, even more than Clayton Keller. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, John Chayka, have fun with Nick Schmaltz. He's a pussy.
Oh.
Yikes.
He is.
Yeah, he definitely, he's fast, and I agree in the sense that he shies away from contact, and he likes to skate around the perimeter. There's no doubt about it.
He's a very good hockey player, but I don't like him. He didn't want to be in Chicago. What a loser. Bum. Good riddance.
Man, just coming out hot, man. The Valentine's Day fever has obviously not swept. You go with the Flow Boys, I guess.
Well, I spent my Valentine's Day with one of my friends at a bar, till like 2 a.m. So no love here. No love lost.
Yeah, boy.
Good old Kenny's. Good old Kenny's.
Shout out to Chicagoland suburban
Gotta love
Irish
Kenny's.
dive bars.
No free ads though. Fuck.
No, it's all right. Kenny's deserves some love. It's good joint. It's the unofficial watering hole of Let Me Be Frank. So there you go. Anything else? Any other fun facts? Anything we forgot? Otherwise, trying to keep the episodes a little shorter. We know not everyone commutes an hour and a half or has an hour and a half or doesn't want to play us on 1.5 speed and make us sound like we're just ripping on lines of coke before we do it. But yeah, I think
not fellas. I'm out. I don't think I have anything. So.
All right. I guess we're gonna call it a wrap on this week, and we will see if any have a night, Nick. If any pre-trade deadline trades go down, or if obviously world of suspensions and playoff push, and hockey's going to start getting a little more physical. The games are going to start meaning more. I mean, 2 points in October, same as 2 points in April, but obviously there's a lot of teams and some coaches and everything under pressure right now. So excited to see what the next week brings your boys before we get our little round table back together.
Absolutely. It'll be a fun time as usual.
All right, Kevin, Dan, thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you next week.
All right, fellas. See you later.
All right. See you later, boys.
Peace.